All right. Well, I just want to welcome everybody and thank them for watching. And Doug, thank you for being here to talk about your upcoming hypnosis in pop culture event.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're watching and have a comment or a question, just type it down below. And if you think of a friend or colleague who'd like to enjoy watching this, just tag them in the comments or share this to your timeline or send them a little message. Just a quick story. The first time I met Doug was at an Oregon Hypnotherapy Association meeting. I'd met Eric Singer, who was a hypnotherapist in Southeast Portland, at a dance event. Eric hosts dance events and classes at Lenore's Ballroom. And I had not been to the OHA for quite a while. He was wanting to introduce me to people I hadn't met. And into the room walks this man with a beard and a hat, and Eric goes over to talk to him, and he's bringing me along. And the first thought that popped into my head was, I'm getting a personal introduction to the guy with the hat. This is my lucky day. And it was, because Doug is not only a superlative example of a gifted hypnotist, but he's a conscientious businessman and community member. He's an outstanding instructor and mentor to his students. His practice is at Gresham. He's a certified instructor of hypnosis and NLP. He's a past board member of the Oregon Hypnotherapy Association, and he performs comedy stage hypnosis. Douglas Meacham, hypnohistorian, has been practicing hypnosis since 1996. And while helping people with hypnosis is his vocation, his avocation is 20th century popular culture with a focus on hypnosis. He has an extensive collection of early examples of hypnosis-related materials, from sheet music from 1911 and Axis propaganda envelopes used during World War II, to more current examples of hypnosis and hypnotherapy referenced in popular culture. Doug's presenting next month at Hypnothoughts Live, one of the two major hypnosis conferences held in the US each year. And I am just thrilled that he's going to be in Beaverton August 11th with a pre-conference preview for hypnotists and for the hypno-curious. Doug will be taking us through popular culture and how movies, books, music, and magazines have shaped how hypnosis is understood and, more often, misunderstood. Doug, how did you discover hypnosis, and how did that grow to where you are today?
Wow. When I was 13, a family member, or a family friend actually, brought a book and a record album to the house. The book, I was just about hypnosis, and I read it from cover to cover. I guess I was about 13, so a lot of it was over my head. But the record was 33 1/3 vinyl recording of The Search for Bridie Murphy. It was the recordings were done in 1952, but the album was pressed in 1956, and so that really, catapulted me into, wow, the mind is an amazing thing.
And how did things grow from that to where you are today?
Well, I actually ended up in Arizona. A lot of life changes. I ended up in Arizona, and I went to school in Scottsdale at the Atwood Institute. I had access to the Ericksonian Institute, which is in Phoenix, and I took NLP with a gentleman down in Scottsdale, NLP, Arizona. And so it just kind of all cascaded into, wow, I'm doing hypnosis. So
I think a lot of people wonder why anyone would want to be a hypnotist. Tell us, why do they, and how do you help them?
Why people want to be hypnotized?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that there's a lot of reasons. There's, people are hypnotized for stress reduction, weight loss, smoking cessation. I actually am certified to do something called hypnotension. I work with people who have been diagnosed with hypertension and referred by doctors to me to help them reduce their hypertension naturally through hypnosis. So there's a lot of things that people can do, and I think that we're really still just scratching the surface of how we can apply hypnosis. People do it because unfortunately, we're the often modality of last resort. But thankfully, we're successful at what we do. So I get a lot of people who say, wow, I wish I'd come here first. I said, well, you had to find out. So I think that's, a lot of the general population's idea. Okay, we'll try all of this mainstream stuff first, and hypnosis becomes an alternative, a last resort, and they're happy that they've found us.
I have heard the same kinds of comments. I wish I'd come here first. So,
Yeah.
And for anybody who's watching, hypnotists who are watching, what kind of issues do you work with? Put it down in the comments. Love to hear it. Doug, I've never been to Hypnothoughts Live. What is it exactly?
Well, Hypnothoughts Live is, as you mentioned, one of the largest hypnosis conferences in the world. I believe it started in 2012. And it has just grown exponentially. It's a conference that's 3 days long. Now, they do have pre- and post-conference classes people can take. Those are courses that you pay for in addition to. But the conference itself is 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the speakers, the presentations are all part of your purchase price. You can see any one and any number of the presentations, all for that one price. This year, there are about 200 speakers, presenters. I happen to be one of them.
Awesome. Have you presented before?
Not at Hypnothoughts, no.
Oh, cool.
I reached out to Scott Sandlin before the process was opened. I said, Scott, how do I present at Hypnothoughts? He said, in about a month, we're going to be opening it up to a presentation request. That's when you do it. And so I did. I threw this out there, and I was just kind of, well, okay, if I do it, I do it. If I don't, that's okay too. It's not the end of the world. And then I get an email saying, well, guess what? You're one of our presenters. And so I said, woohoo! And for the last several months, I've been polishing this thing. So
what would you want to teach this workshop at Hypnothoughts?
As hypnotists, we are exposed to who we would consider to be the experts. I mean, going to Ellman or Milton Erickson, or even, more modern individuals. And that's our reference. When we want to understand hypnosis, we go to what we would consider to be the masters of our craft. The lay public, they don't generally look at that. They don't see that but they have access to movies, magazines, and music, and that's where they get their information. And I started looking at how hypnosis was offered to the public through popular culture. And of course, it confirmed a lot of what I had known, that, hypnosis is mind control, and that hypnosis can make you do this or that. But I found out that hypnosis has a sine wave pattern of popularity and acceptance. And so it's not, every decade we have an up and a down. Sometimes we have, a long stretch of acceptance, and sometimes we have a long stretch of, we're not really sure it's something you want to do. We sometimes have incredible peaks, and then we have valleys that seem to take us down into the depths of Hades. And so I just started looking at it and thinking, my gosh, what an amazing resource. And then to understand how my clients and the general public sees us. And it's often misunderstood. Yeah.
Some people say, nobody reads those comic books, or nobody could watch that TV show or movie and actually take that seriously. What would you say to those?
Well, I'd say, Hollywood, like human beings, won't keep doing something if it doesn't work for them. And so let me give you an example. In 1927, there was a silent movie called Running Wild. It starred W.C. Fields. Now, initially, W.C. Fields is a milquetoast kind of guy. He can't stand up for himself. His wife browbeats him. His boss browbeats him. anyway, he happens upon a stage hypnosis performance, and the hypnotist hypnotizes him to be confident and courageous, and he dons some boxing gloves, and he's unstoppable. And of course, as it's a comedy, so things happen. So that was in 1927. In 1946, there's a movie by the Bowery Boys, and it's called Mr. Hex. And in that, there's a hypnotist, in this particular instance, a good hypnotist. And the boys find out that a lady friend they know needs some help with her mom's medical bills. And they've got to come up with a way. They were schemers anyway. In all 48 of their movies, they were always scheming about how to do something, mostly get money. And so they hypnotized one of the members, Satch, the tall, lanky guy with the baseball cap, into believing that he is invincible, unstoppable. He's a boxer, and he goes all the way to the top. Now, of course, again, it's a comedy, so lots of things happen. Then, in 1975, it was done again. This time, a movie by the name of Let's Do It Again. Now, I'm not saying Hollywood named it that way, but anyway, it's another story. This one was directed by Sidney Poitier, and stars he and Bill Cosby, and it's about a church that needs some help, and they decide that they're going to hypnotize a boxer and bet on him so that the church can get what it wants. The funny thing is that the boxer is, if you remember, Jimmy Walker, a tall, lanky kid, no bones, so no, there's nothing but bones. Anyway, he's the boxer, and he does. So my point is that Hollywood keeps doing this because it sells movies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Books keep doing this because they sell books. The stories in magazines keep getting repeated because people purchase them. So someone would say to me, yeah, well, that's not necessarily true. People will buy them, and we have people come into our office and say, I've got friends that tell me, don't look at his eyes, or are you really sure you want to do this? Tell me what he made you do. It's like, and that's all been fed to them through popular culture.
Have there been any big changes over the years in how hypnosis is portrayed?
Yes. It's kind of funny because I was thinking about that, and that's the sine wave theory that I have. There's a lot of times that hypnosis is amazingly accepted. When they talk about its medical applications, how it can help people with stress, anxiety. In 1957, a magazine by the name of Medic, there was a woman who talked about how she used hypnosis to eliminate morning sickness. And so, we had a lot of acceptance. And then there are times that hypnosis was so taboo that, the movies, the books, all talked about how it was raunchy. It was, the applications were risque. Hollywood used it for weird parties, all sorts of stuff. And so the 50s and 60s gave us some really interesting views, and none of them, I shouldn't say none of them, most of them were not really encouraging the public to go out and find a hypnotist. Because as McCall's magazine said on one of their covers in the 1950s, hypnosis is not a parlor game. So I'll talk about that in my presentation. But yes, there have been many ups and downs. And so people actually do get different ideas. There's some parts, some places where we're like, wow, this is an incredible tool. There's so much we can do. And then, the next year it's like, oh yeah, we were wrong. And I wouldn't let anybody talk to you or hypnotize you. And here's why. And then we start to swing back up. And right now, thankfully, we're in an upswing. And it's our job. I'm probably going a little bit further ahead in the question possibly you have, but it's our job as hypnotists to educate our public, our clients, to let them know what it is we really do. And while that's entertainment, what we really do is very different than is portrayed in the culture that is handed to them. So
it's really interesting. It's hard to explain to people sometimes how, yes, those comedy shows are real. People are really hypnotized. They are really having those experiences, and yet the kinds of things that you're doing in the clinical work have absolutely nothing to do with that kind of hypnosis. So I hope that I think probably people will get that kind of insight from your presentation. Is that right?
Yes, that is my that's my message. I looked at it as, okay, well, there really needs to be a reason for this, and what I've learned and how I'm going to share it. But yeah, the ultimate message is how we as hypnotists, hypnotherapists, our profession, it's our job to let people know, yes, you've seen it on TV, but it is very, very different.
Is it important, or why is it important for hypnotists to know how hypnosis is being portrayed in popular culture? I mean, why should they care?
That's a really good question. This is a personal thing. And I don't know if I'm the only one. Actually, I know I'm not the only one, because another very good friend of mine, Johnny McDonald, had the same attitude, for lack of a better description. When we first started this, it was almost as though we were apologizing for hypnosis. It's like, what do you do? I'm a hypnotist, and you're like, you're apologizing for helping people. And it's like, what are we doing that for? And then you have this epiphany. It's like, no, my goodness, I'm doing this to help people. I'm being, as Igor Ledachowski would say, a force for good in the universe. So it's really important for us to be able to explain to our clients the value of what hypnosis is. And while there's humor and there's exaggeration, the benefits of hypnosis are far and above anything that the darker illustrations provide. So when you think about how someone can come in and in one session be a non-smoker after 41 years of smoking a cigarette, or after a series of sessions, someone makes lifestyle changes and they begin to reduce their weight, and all that comes down to, it's like, how do we as hypnotists educate them to, it's like, this is how beneficial this is for you. And while this is entertainment on movies, magazines, music, what we're doing in here is real life. And there's often a big difference between real life and what Hollywood hands us.
What's one of the biggest misunderstandings the general public has about hypnosis?
Mind control. Hypnosis is mind control. That's probably the biggest one I've got as a hypnotherapist in my research. That said, so there was a book written, and I apologize right now because I don't remember the author. All I remember is her list of hypnosis in movies. And she talked about how she saw most of these movies and had watched them, and she cataloged them all the way back into the silent movies all the way up. And I actually started looking at her list, and I watched those movies, and I'm thinking, no, Dracula's not hypnosis. Dracula's mind control. There were movies in the 1950s where they used drugs and machines to control people. Oh, that's not hypnosis. That's mind control. And so when people come in here, they think, are you going to control what I do? Are you going to tell me, and am I going to have to do exactly what you say? Are you going to make me tell you my deepest, darkest secrets? Of course, all of those can be answered with, you are in control, and no, I can't make you do those things. But again, probably the biggest is that people believe that you and I, or any hypnotist, hypnotherapist, is going to control them. And that's a big fear for people.
Well, before we wrap up, is there a question you wish I'd asked?
That's an interesting question, Michelle. And I don't know that I have that answer or that question right now. So I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I've
Anything else
had
you?
Yeah, I've had a wonderful time doing this, and I love talking about this. You know that I love talking about hypnosis, and so I think you did a really wonderful job with the questions, and I think it covers an area or multiple areas where people, hypnotists, lay people, can get an idea of what it is that we do and how it's been presented. So your questions, I think, were very, very appropriate.
The hardest thing about deciding what questions to ask you during the short time was holding back, because I know that so much of it is going to be answered in your presentation on the 11th. But this is a topic I am insanely passionate about. I grew up in Los Angeles while Pat Collins was on television all the time. So hypnosis has been in my experience for so long. It's very, very second nature to me. And it's a very different world now than it used to be. So I am super excited about your presentation. And how can people find you aside from, you know, the 11th and in Beaverton and being in Las Vegas during Hypnothoughts, the 24th to the 26th of August? How can people find you?
Well, they can find me on the web at www.greshamhypnosiscenter.com. That's my main practice. I do have retrohypno.com. That's my comedy stage hypnosis website. You can find me in downtown Gresham, the corner of Roberts and Powell Boulevard. And of course, you can find me on Facebook.
Awesome. Do you want to talk about the stage hypnosis at all, as long as we're here?
Well, yeah, actually, I'm going to be doing a show in downtown Gresham. Thank you for asking. The show is slated to be September. No one knows this yet, so woo! I know. September 15th, it's going to be downtown Gresham at the Salt Academy. It's a nice little venue. It's a theater down here. It's on Main Street. We'll be ramping up and doing our promotion and getting the tickets ready and whatnot. But yeah, I'll be doing a show down here, and it's a family show. It's fun, of course, because it's a stage show, just like so many things. Who knows what's going to happen? So, but you know, we'll have a lot of fun, and I will let everyone know that if you come up on stage, I'll be nice to you. So
yes, you will. I know you will. And I'm excited. It's time for a field trip in September.
There you go. Yes.
Thank you so much for being here and talking to us. And Douglas Meacham of the Gresham Hypnosis Center will be presenting his pre-conference preview of hypnosis in popular culture in Beaverton on August 11th from 10 a.m. to noon. That's a Saturday. I'm Michelle DeLude from Destinations Hypnosis. I will be the host for his event. So to learn more about it or to register, just reach out to me on Facebook, or you can email or phone me. I'm at michelleD@destinationshypnosis.com. Hypnothoughts Live is August 24th through 26th in Las Vegas at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. And you can learn more about that by going to htlive.net. And thank you, everybody, for being with us, and have a fabulous week. Good night.
Thank you, Michelle.